executive session. Now we're reconvening in open session. And I'd like to welcome visitors. If the committee would like, I would like to entertain a motion to vote to reinstate policy BEDH on a limited one-time trial basis for this evening's meeting.
So moved.
Okay, Mike moved it.
Second.
Timmy seconded. All those in favor? A little wave or a yes is good. Okay, looks unanimous. Thank you. Okay, if you could, Tina, could you let all the people in the waiting room in so they can hear our introduction of them?
Good. I have 3 people actually let in.
Okay. If someone else comes as we're at it, can you let them in as well, or is that just?
I will be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. Just tell me when they're in.
You joined without.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we set, Tina?
Hang on.
I still have some more coming in.
Okay, thanks.
And looks like that's it.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're happy to announce that we'll be welcoming public participation by means of Zoom. Thanks to the diligent efforts of our technology director, Tina Mahaney, we'll be starting this tonight. Also, thanks to our school committee secretary, Jennifer Lively, who's been receiving emails and sending the information to the participants. Soon we'll be sending out information for an alternate method of participation for people who would prefer to send us a letter to be read. For tonight, members of the public wishing to participate will be put into a waiting room, a Zoom waiting room it's called, until it's their turn, so people can have a turn one-on-one. We may have a number of people wishing to participate, so we appreciate your patience with this. Also, with that in mind, it would be helpful if each speaker could try to maybe limit their remarks to 2 to 3 minutes in length so we can hear everyone's input tonight. Anything you'd like to add, Jennifer?
Sorry, I was muted. Just make sure to let us know your name. If it might say it's your phone or something with your phone number, it doesn't say your name on all of them.
Okay, thanks. Tina, if you could let the first person in to have their turn.
Jane,
Yes.
some people, and I didn't fully understand, I think it was Jennifer that was speaking, that some people may not wish to give their phone numbers. They may be unlisted, etc.
Mommy, I need to go poopy.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I think we just asked for their name. So Tina, who do we have joining us first?
So I have Leslie Cogswell starting right now.
Could
I'm
I make
sorry.
a suggestion that everyone can I make a suggestion that everyone just mute their mic if they're not speaking, just so that we can clearly understand everyone. It gets difficult sometimes with background noise.
Thank you. Good suggestion. So Tina, who do we have speaking first?
We have Leslie Cogswell online.
Okay.
Leslie?
Welcome, Leslie.
Leslie?
I think she might be frozen.
Frozen.
So I lost Leslie.
Oh, here she is. There she is. Hi, Leslie. It's your turn if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, it was really hard to connect and hear everybody a couple minutes ago, but I did hear that you'd like just kind of a brief 2 minutes about whatever our thoughts are. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, so, all right. So I just wanted to mention the something that's important to me regarding just all of this, as far as especially if we just go remote, and that is the special ed piece. You know, I think Robin Whiteman did an incredible job in the spring with my son, and she worked really hard and put in so much time and energy and effort. So I think that my request would be that she would be able to have support staff that could help her, even if it's, you know, running other people running groups, or you know, she was at my house every week dropping off materials. So if there's people that could help in that vein, I just wanted to put a plug out for more special ed help. But like I said, she was amazing and invaluable, and my son did not regress, and that was my goal.
Thank you, we appreciate that. Anything else?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's working so hard on this. I cannot imagine what you're all going through right now, and I really appreciate all of your time and energy and effort. It's not going unnoticed.
Thank you so much, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Tina, who do we have next?
Right, we have a Heather Norwood coming in.
Hi, Heather.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello. I'm not exactly sure what you're doing, how you're working it, so you just want me to give my opinion?
Yes, because
Or-
we're trying to give each person their own turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I honestly thought this was going to be a little bit more community-based. I wasn't expecting to go one-on-one. I was very curious to hear what the other parents were having to say. I can tell you personally, we will not be sending Jacob, my 16-year-old, back to school this year. He is too medically fragile. And I don't feel, even though as hard as the school system is working to protect everyone, I feel that it's too great a risk. And we honestly have to consider whether or not we'll be sending Anna because of the significant risk that it poses to our households. I'm concerned about what's going to happen if one teacher gets it. I'm concerned about the cases that just showed up at Bay State, which is a perfect example of one person traveling to a hotspot, and all of a sudden there's 26 employees and 13 patients that have COVID. It's like a microcosm for a school system.
Mhm.
So I think it's too risky. I really do. I think that sending anyone back to the school system, at least in the first 6 months of the school year, is going to decimate our community. You've got the teachers, you've got the staff. If they have people at home who are at risk because they're over 65 or they have underlying health conditions, or people who have relatives that they stay with because they are working on childcare, which is a huge issue with all of this as well. I know there's a huge push for kids to go back to school so people can work. I think that probably sums it up. You know, I'm curious what kind of plans the school is going to put in place for what happens if one teacher gets it. How are you going to do contact tracing? What's going to happen if someone who works in the cafeteria gets it, and all of those lunches are disseminated to all of those kids, the entire school system? It's, my 2 cents is it's a significant risk, and it should be remote learning.
We hear your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Tina, who do we have next?
We have a Nicole Kelly.
Okay.
Hello, Nicole.
Hi,
Hi, Nicole. Welcome.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So,
Would you like to give us some of your thoughts?
oh, sorry. Yeah, so as a parent for a child who is at high risk, he has asthma, he has extremely bad allergies to the point that he goes for monthly allergy shots. The fact that the last 2 years, February through April, is like a crucial time for him. When he gets sick, he's literally sick for 2 to 3 months and on 2 to 3 rounds of antibiotics, just trying to fight the normal winter cold that everyone gets every single year. So dealing with all of that, and then he also has to do nebulizer treatments when he goes through these bouts. So, you know, dealing with all of that as a parent, I am extremely concerned about sending him back. And at this point, I am not comfortable sending him back. We have been very diligent as a family during all of these months to not expose ourselves, only as necessary when we need to go to the grocery store or what have you. So it makes me extremely concerned. And hybrid for me is just, for me, that's not an option because I'm still not comfortable. Why would I still want to expose my son if he hasn't been exposed? I'm going to take that chance to expose him for 1 or 2 days a week or whatever the schedule may be. If it's hybrid, that just, I'm not comfortable with that.
Thank you. We hear your concern.
Okay. So, and unfortunately with everything with the government, I'm not confident that they're going to make the right choice for every family. The fact that schools are already seriously underfunded and the fact that they should be giving more money to help get online programming to a new level, it makes me concerned that, you know, it's being threatened that they're going to cut money. It's like, well, where are you going to cut it from? Because it's already been cut and it's down to the bare bones.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tina, who do we have next?
We have Christine coming in.
Jennifer?
Maybe we can just start by asking or letting folks know if they didn't intend to or want to speak that they can pass. We just don't know. There's no way for you to indicate on Zoom if you wanted to speak or not. So feel free to say pass if you're just here to listen. And when we're done with public participation, we'll let you know how to follow everything and continue to follow it.
Thank you. Is Christine with us?
Hi, Christine.
She's muted.
Hello?
There she goes.
Hi,
Hi, Christine.
Christine.
Yes.
Hi, welcome.
Hello.
Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to offer ideas on tonight?
Not yet. I'm just gonna listen for now.
Okay, sure.
Shall I let another person in?
Yes, yeah. Could you let in someone else if they'd like to make some comments while we have some time for that?
Sure. There's a Jennifer Morgan online.
Good dog. Good girl.
Hello, Jennifer.
Good dog.
I think there's also a delay when people come on to hear us.
A long delay.
Like if they're just joining.
Okay.
Hello?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. I was trying
Hi.
to figure it out. I was like,
That's
call,
it's,
join, what?
yeah, it's all kind of tricky, believe me. We're all working it out. Nice to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
Would you like to offer something for the committee?
Well, I was I thought it was like a group meeting where I'd be hearing what everybody's ideas and strategies are. Is this for all the kids to be returning to school?
Uh-huh. Okay.
I have no idea what the plan is, so I just know my main concerns.
Would you like to tell us what those are? We'd be happy to listen.
Just the kids being able to maintain the 6 feet apart and still be able to go outside and have the air moments to be able to relieve from the breathing in the mask so much. And being able to take the temperatures at the school. My mom was saying how they're relying on all the parents to take temperatures at home and not send the kids if they have a fever. But I know even during the school year, you know, when our kids get sick, it's because somebody was sent to school without a parent realizing that they were sick or not taking to that they were sick.
Right. We do hear your concerns, and we are working on lots of those details. And as soon as we've gotten them, you know, definitely decided, we'll be putting out more information. But thank you for sharing that.
And I do think it's critical that they have, you know, like the hands-on. I don't know if some kids need one-on-one teaching more than other kids, but I know the last few years, the teachers have said that my son needs like a face-to-face teacher for math. And it was really kind of difficult for him to get through math this year being online.
Oh, with online learning, yes.
Yeah. So I didn't know, even if we had the remote learning, if there were certain kids who, you know, like if we do the testing and we sign a paper that we do, you know, the temperature checking, if they can at least have a teacher on the grounds that we can bring them to, you know, because then if it's a limited amount of kids, that they still will be able to get that hands-on learning.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your ideas with us.
It's so difficult with online. It's like, you guys give us 5 options. I like it when they say, do you have any ideas? It's like, thank you so much. That helps. Because I would agree if, I do agree if.
It's very hard to pick something for sure.
It is. It's like, I don't want to say no, I won't send him. But I don't want to say yes, I will. If, you know, if all the parents and people aren't taking their temperatures. I trust, but only so far.
Right. Okay, thank you so much.
I love it at the hair salon. They take the temp, they check you, they lock the door. I'm like, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Really, they sure do. They're on it.
And to let them know we appreciate it, you know, it means a big difference.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, ladies. Have a good day.
You too. Tina, who do we have next?
I have a David Smith coming in.
I think it was David Smith's wife. Hello.
Hello, David. Hi, David. Welcome.
Thank you, Jane.
Would you like to share some ideas with us this evening?
Yes, Jane, I'm just, I had some tech trouble. I just joined, so I missed all the previous conversations. So I'm David Smith. I teach history at the high school. And I just want to share a few thoughts I have for the committee. First, one of the most important things to me personally, and in solidarity with my colleagues and with the students, is that somehow there be an effort to establish a testing procedure. I really believe that it's really irrational and irresponsible if we go back to school and we just roll the dice. I know that the Connecticut Teachers Association has put out a platform in which that's one of their key hopes and priorities. So I don't know if that's been brought up. I know it's really depends upon money and financing from the government. But for me, I wanted to share that with you. And secondly, with many of my colleagues, some of whom I've spoken to just today, in fact, on the phone, I'd like to share their opinions. And one of the things we believe strongly is that we haven't really spent a whole lot of time on the prospect of remote learning. So should we start off in a hybrid model and then have to fall back on remote learning? It seems important now, before too much time passes, to make that decision so we can be taught, we can teach ourselves, we can collaborate. And during those 10 days that we are given, that we have some voice and some ability to design that online curriculum and learn some effective teaching methods, and get into some of the details that include, among many details, things like assessment. Last spring we had credit and no credit, and that served its purpose, I suppose. It was a ad hoc response. And as every teacher knows, that did not motivate a lot of kids, and a lot of kids checked out. So, and we have not talked about or had the ability to talk about methods of assessment for online learning at all. So those are just two of my many opinions and thoughts and solidarity with my colleagues that I wanted to share with you tonight. And I appreciate the effort everybody's putting into this, and for giving me a chance to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, David, for sharing your ideas. We appreciate it.
And we have a Sherry Carey. I have 5 more people waiting. I'll keep on going.
Sure, yeah, we're doing okay. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Hello?
Hi, Sherry.
The fuck?
Maybe having some trouble with internet.
Yeah, I think Sherry doesn't have audio.
Bill, I think we're getting some interference from you. Could you mute your mic?
I'm sorry, what?
No, I was just, I think we're getting some interference from Bill because he's not muted. So I just asked him if he wouldn't
Okay.
mind just
Bill, could you
while
mute
we're
your mic for a bit and see if that helps? Thank you.
here.
Do you think Sherry's been able to connect, Tina?
No, I think Sherry has no audio capabilities, so we're gonna move on.
Okay.
We have a Frank Wiles waiting.
Hello, Frank.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you tonight?
Good. Sorry, I got it on TV too, so I apologize. I'll turn that down.
Oh, wow. Multimedia.
Yeah, multimedia, because I didn't seem like I was getting on. Realistically, what's the time frame that we're talking about where we're going to get final decisions on whether or not we're going to have our kids go to school or you know, have a hybrid model or an online model?
Would you like me to just reiterate the timeline that we
Sure.
laid out
Could
to
you
you?
do that, Brian? This is Brian, our superintendent.
Yeah, I know, Brian.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm just, I know the timeline. I've read the timeline, but you know, I think that you probably have something in your head where you think you're gonna get it out to everybody, or something realistic, because I have read the timeline. When are we gonna know for sure what's gonna really happen?
So at the very least, after the August 11th school committee meeting, I believe that we'll be in a position to share the learning plans and then survey parents. And then as long as we have about 2.5 weeks before school would start, because if you think about it, every year, every family typically gets some sort of mailing about the start of school that includes the opening day schedules and all their materials and sometimes forms. That usually comes out 2 to 3 weeks before school starts. So tonight we're going to have a discussion about changing the school year calendar to push back the start of school 10 days. And then the school committee is going to have a discussion about whether or not they need to have a meeting before the August 25th meeting, you know, to make that decision, or whether or not there's enough time for families for them to be able to make the decision on August 25th. We just need a few days after, and we want to give the public a few days so that parents can take a look at the plans, give their feedback on the plans in a very brief survey, and then we can get that survey data to school committee because they're the ones who will have to make that decision. So there may be a one-item agenda, but it's our intent on a special school committee meeting in the in-between time so that they can deliberate and then ultimately make a decision. But I'd like for it to be in that similar time frame. And what that basically does is I feel like it gives us the opportunity to again, be as close to real time in terms of reading the metrics in the area, the towns within the county and adjacent counties just to the north in New Hampshire, and make sure that the school committee has all of the information on that they need to be able to make a decision for the opening of school.
So whatever decision that you end up deciding to make, it looks like school will start September 14th.
I think it's actually, if I went through the count, I looked, and Carl, I think I misspoke when we were in the admin meeting together. Students were originally supposed to start on August 27th. And so I think that puts us out to September 10th rather than September 14th. For some reason, I counted out to September 14th as well. And I think I misspoke.
Okay,
But
thank you.
we'll take a look at that on the calendar tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, Tina, who do we have next?
I have Colleen coming in.
Hi, Colleen.
I just asked that Colleen provide us her last name.
Oh, hi, Colleen.
Just
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear?
We did for a minute and then we didn't.
How about now?
Yes, now I can hear you. Can everyone else hear?
I'm gonna leave my audio off, or my video off, because I think you're struggling to hear me. I just wanted to thank everyone for everything you're doing. I recognize that for all of you, all of the faculty, all of the staff, this is a time like no other. I wanted to just give a couple of observations. I have a son at Gill Elementary School, so my perspective is specific to Gill currently. And I just wanted to offer a few observations. As a family, we feel ready for our kids to return to in-person learning. We are fortunate in that we don't have anyone in our family that is high risk. And I definitely understand that families will come at this from very different perspectives based on their family situations and their own assessment of risk. What I wanted to share was that for me and for our family, our goals is for our family to be safe and for our children's mental health and love of learning to be retained over this next year. I feel that our children's mental health suffered last year and their love of learning suffered last year. And at least at the elementary level, I think being in person matters. And so I guess I just wanted to pose a couple of ideas that our educators, if we return to in-person learning, really think outside the box. I'd like to really advocate for more outdoor learning opportunities, particularly at Gill. They have the physical space for it. And I think outdoor learning could really increase safety, reduce our requirements around masks all day long, and could also spark some really creative learning opportunities. And I don't know if similar opportunities exist at Sheffield or Hillcrest, but I would just encourage our educators and you as a school committee to really think about that option, at least through the fall before the weather is really cold. I also have concerns at Gill at the size of the building and the number of students and the ability to maintain social distancing. And so I also just wanted to encourage everyone to be thinking outside the box and thinking about whether we have additional space within the district to help accommodate some kids at the Gill School or potentially even some classes at the Gill School for some portion of the learning if it goes in person. I would very much hate to see Gill be restricted from in-person learning because there's not physical space. You know, when we had a flood at the Gill School on a dime, the district, we were able to be creative and think outside the box and house our Gill School in a completely different building. And so I just hope that we'll be thinking creatively here too. And then finally, I just really wanted to encourage whether we end up in a virtual learning environment or in a in-person learning environment, that our teachers have as much flexibility as possible to build curriculum and to build learning opportunities that will work in whatever platform they're learning in. I think the most important thing for our kids right now is for them to be engaged and that for them to be enjoying learning. And our experience last spring is that didn't translate. The learning opportunities that we were doing virtually by trying to translate existing curriculum into virtual learning environments, it was not engaging. It was not adequately engaging. And so I just encourage us to encourage our teachers and give them as much flexibility as possible to use their full skill set, to think about how our kids can stay mentally engaged and continue a love of learning during this period. It seems like the most important thing, far more important than standardized test scores, far more important than meeting specific curriculum requirements. And that's all I have to offer, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Tina, who do we have next?
Looks like Michelle Fisher, Jane, and
Okay.
she's still connecting.
Okay, thank you. Michelle? Hi, Michelle? Michelle?
She's having trouble connecting. I wonder if Tina could get another member of the public in for a comment in the meantime.
Could you get someone else in, Tina, while she's working on connecting?
Actually, she was the last. So
Oh,
that's
she
it
was.
for audio.
Okay, well, give her a minute or two, see if she can.
Sure.
Jennifer?
So there's no one else in the waiting room, or the people that already spoke, are they still waiting to like hear that we're done or get direction on what to do next?
I just have Colleen, and she's probably just trying to figure out how to get out, and I can send them a message that it's ended if you'd like.
Okay, I had one person email me that they were waiting a Smith, but they're not there anymore. So
No more. Actually, Colleen already left, so I don't have anybody else in the waiting room.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I just send Michelle a chat?
If that's easier for her, sure, we could do that. She could send us a chat.
Yep.
And then you might remind, has everyone left the waiting room already?
Yes, the waiting room is now empty.
Okay, so I'll just remind people in general, they can watch us on MCTV. So
yes, please.
Okay, if we could I thank everyone for their participation. We appreciate it. I know technology makes it a bit more challenging, but I appreciate everybody's working through it. Just a reminder for everyone in the community, our meetings can be viewed live on MCTV each second and fourth Tuesday, unless the station itself is broadcasting another event. If they are broadcasting another event, the meeting is taped and available later at any time on Vimeo app. And usually the Montague Reporter has good coverage of what happened at the meeting, and the Greenfield Recorder can have coverage as well. Anything else we might need to mention, Jennifer?
I think that probably covered it, but maybe we want to send a follow-up to the community that got the email today with that information, because I think they're not necessarily on here anymore, so they might not have heard that.
Yes. Okay, so maybe another email, Brian, when you
just letting them know the options to follow the process, and maybe just clarifying that this is for folks that want to speak, and that it will be like a wait for your turn, because I think some people are in the waiting room and kind of dropped out, not waiting and not knowing what was going on. But we're learning. This was our first try.
Right. I did try to let them know, but if they had trouble connecting at that point, they wouldn't know what I said.
Or like if they don't have audio, things like that. So it looks like a couple of people are also still in here. So Tina, can you make sure that?
So unfortunately, Michelle cannot join us, so she's not responding. And as for the people in the waiting room, it was we were able to give them a message indicating that they were going to go on board in 2-minute blocks. So they actually stuck around, which was
good. Thank you for a first try.
Yep. For
pretty
first
well.
try. We'll
okay. Thank you
work on
all.
the details. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Tina.
Jane, if I could ask, Jane, for you, Jennifer, other members of the committee, if you could just give me some text that I can include in the email, given, you had the firsthand experience, Jennifer, and I'll run that by Tina as well. But you had some very good language there in terms of helping the public to understand that this was our first try at it. And Jane, you could also include your alternative method for people that just wanted us to read comments in the meantime as a contingency or make a decision about that. And then I'll, in a few days, I'll send out that email because we have a good amount of lead time before the August 11th meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Jane?
Okay. Yes.
Jane?
Me?
I assume you said to go ahead. This is Timmy, Superintendent Beck. Might I ask that when you send emails out to the parents and things like this, that you include a section that lists the school committee members and the school committee that way, if the school committee members that have children in the schools, they'll get 2 copies. One as a school committee member and one as a parent. But it also will update and keep informed your school committee members that do not have children in the district schools.
Yes, of course. That makes a ton of sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda, there's no particular important events at the moment to recap. So superintendent's report, Brian?
So as an update from the commissioner, there's been just yesterday, we received official notification that we are able to reduce the number of dates in the school year for students to 170 to open up 10 days for training at the start of the school year. Within the last few days, we've received guidance from the Department of Education on transportation facilities, food service, updated remote learning guidance for courses that require additional safety considerations, such as art, music, and physical education. And also, a little bit more than a week ago, received protocols for suspected COVID cases in schools. No official update has come on the budget for Chapter 70 or 71, to the best of my knowledge. One of our superintendent colleagues did send out an email indicating that the legislature had done something for the first 3 months, but we've received no official word on that yet. That's basically just a rumor, but it does still have us in a 1/12 budget, and they've only worked on the first 3 months apparently. And the last piece is the MIAA has delayed opening of fall sports until at least September 14th for the time being. So in terms of updates from the admin team, we've primarily been working on our return to school plans. But in particular, earlier this week, we met on Monday morning to discuss a variety of recommendations for additional CARES Act funding and coronavirus relief fund grants. We included things in this such as an air quality evaluation through GMRSD for all of the buildings, additional transportation, additional instructional materials, hardware and software technology, tents for outdoor breaks, additional physical distancing materials, and more personal protective equipment. Did want to update also and thank Carl and Kelly Gobiel for the work that they've done and continuing to survey the district staff as the leadership of the Gill-Montague Education Association. So thank you guys very much. That's very, very helpful information. The Pandemic Response Advisory Committee, the big takeaway from the meeting the other night was the report out from the Communications Committee, where we found, looking at the parent survey results, and really the key findings for this, and Tina's going to put together a copy of the survey for the committee as part of a packet of information that you'll be able to look at, and then again, we'll conduct another survey. So she's also going to, or that the communications subcommittee is going to be reaching out to the school committee sooner rather than later to put together a survey to go out after the August 11th meeting. And we just want to have that survey ready to go so that we can gather that information from families as quickly as possible. The big takeaways from the parent survey done most recently by the communications subcommittee of the Pandemic Response Advisory Committee, that there were 482 responses from 935 families, so a little bit more than a majority of families participated in the survey. The key findings from this group, really that it gave parents to provide feedback on 3 feet versus 6 feet social distancing, access and equity concerns, as well as academic expectations and engagement. With appropriate safety measures in place, the question that asked, do you intend to have your child attend school in the fall? 52.4% said yes, 36.5% said maybe, and we heard from one of those in person tonight, and only 11% said no. And there isn't really a correlation between this, but we did ask the question, and households with health-related concerns tabbed out at approximately 27.4% of households have somebody in their house with some sort of a pre-existing health condition that may be exacerbated by contracting COVID-19. So any questions about any of that? Okay. So last night we did also request some recommendations from the Pandemic Response Advisory Committee for the additional days of training. Carl and Kelly were in our administrative meeting today. We talked about the fact that we'll need to get together and bargain those, and at least we have some ideas to kick around. One of the biggest ones is certainly that teachers are going to need to be trained on the technology. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But they're also going to need time. So a few weeks ago, in the second week of July, Tina Mahaney organized, with the assistance of Christine Limoges, conducted 3 full days of training for what ultimately ended up being, Tina, I think 12 teachers, 13 teachers, allowing for an initial group of teachers to become familiar with the hardware and software staff will use in hybrid and remote learning. I wanted to thank all of those teachers who participated for their willingness for their willingness to be trainers and assistants for the teachers in their building who will return in the fall. We're planning additional days to train those teachers prior to the start of school on this technology. And Tina today also presented a plan to Carl and Kelly, which they like the idea of just having an opportunity if teachers want to come up during appointed times to meet with her and get a similar version of that training so that they can take the materials home, the hardware and software, and begin messing around with it, even before the first couple days of school. And I thought that was as though Tina needs anything more on her plate, I thought that was a great idea and a lovely offer, because the more facile people are with the technology, the better off we'll be. The better off our students will be. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else have any questions for Brian? I'm sure we'll be getting more updates too, but thank you for that. Okay. Next on our list, business and operations report. I don't think we have anything new at the moment, Joanne.
No, I didn't have a report for you. There are plenty of things we're working on. Brian talked about the grants, ordering PPE, getting the rooms ready. Tina and I will be going to each of the schools and just getting rooms set up, looking at what classrooms will look like, 6 feet apart or 3 feet apart, just to get an idea of what those rooms will look like and what furniture will need to be in them and out of them. So we're starting that tomorrow.
Right, and we still don't have any update from the state on budget, correct?
We have no update from the state on budget. I'm working on a list of what, changes to the budget that we can make for our savings. But I have nothing final to share with you yet, because we really don't know what number we're shooting for yet.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, did you have a question?
Yeah, when you're setting rooms up, I know it might be premature to do this, and maybe it's something to do in the first 10 days of school, but I think parents might appreciate getting photos of some different classrooms, because it'd be nice to be able to prepare the students that it's not going to look normal and it's not going to be what they remember.
Yep.
And just having that prep time in a visual, I think, will really be helpful.
Yeah, right now we're going to try to do one classroom in each building just to get a visual of that. And we can certainly take some pictures, people sitting with rulers between them.
Mm-hmm.
And the pandemic committee can talk about, but maybe like even doing like a little mock thing and posting it somewhere so folks can just share with their kiddos what to expect.
Sure.
I think they're gonna be expecting something that's not gonna be what it looks like.
Right.
Bill? Bill?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Joanne, can you please explain what is behind 6 feet versus 3 feet? I imagine it's wearing a mask, but can you explain that for clarification to others?
I think it's two options that, have been discussed. Either way, they would wear the masks.
Yeah.
Brian?
So I think basically what it came from, Bill, was, the CDC had put together guidelines for the entire public, talking about 6 feet as, if you couldn't stay 6 feet away from each other, you should be wearing a mask. When the advisories came out for the opening of schools, they squished it up to 3 feet. And it's speculation on my part, but I'm assuming because they believe that, some research has indicated that children don't spread the virus as effectively as adults. However, ultimately it's kind of a wash, because you're still inside of a building with one another. We still have the issues of contact and so forth. So, but it came from two different places, and for schools they narrowed it down to 3 feet. I think assuming that we wouldn't be able to do 6 feet.
I have a follow-up to that. Since you brought it up, I'm really amused in some ways in the discussion about kids and transmission. And the reason I'm amused is in every instance that I've listened to about it, they always talk about 10 years and younger. And that's only a minuscule portion of the kids that are in our schools. So it's disingenuous to talk about 1 second, 10 years and under, and then start talking about kids, because it gets all thrown in together, and 18-year-olds are not the same as 10-year-olds. And I simply want to emphasize my frustration at that continuing to be put out there, and the confusion from it is exactly that, confusion. Who are they talking about? 10 or under, or everybody under 21? Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you. I would add to that that we actually got that from DESE before the CDC made any motion towards 3 feet. There were a couple of studies came out of South Korea and China, and maybe a third one. But one of the problems is that kids have not been in schools. Or if they have, they're in countries where the rate is low. So we really don't have any good data about what's going to happen when schools open. So I would just agree with you wholeheartedly to the point that we really don't know. And it is, yeah, it's frustrating to hear it presented as fact, because it's speculation along with everything else.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next item, school committee reports, warrant subcommittee. We have 2 warrants to vote on, and if it meets everyone's approval, I'll read off the information about both of them, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve them both at once. So the first is an accounts payable warrant for fiscal year 21. It's a cleanup warrant, number 3056, dated 6/30/20. That must be for fiscal year 20.
Yes, it is fiscal year 20. It's our final warrant.
Copied it wrong. And in the amount of $259,107.45. That's paying the last of the bills from the last fiscal year. And the second accounts payable warrant is number 3103, dated 7/29/20, for $1,149,785.20.
2 cents.
Oh, dyslexia strikes. Okay,
So it's 149,785 and 2 cents.
2 cents. Thank you for that correction. You need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mike seconded. Haley motion. Mike seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I should have asked about questions.
It's okay. On one of them was the collaborative for the equity committee, and I just wanted to make sure that that was for the time that they worked, because the process stopped mid-year, mid-process. So before we pay it, I just want to make sure that they look at that and make sure it's the correct amount.
Yes, we checked the dates on those to make sure that we paid the right number of months.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. That's why we all get them, so we can check them out. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, looks unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving on to business. The first item is just brief. Last time we discussed and formed subcommittees and appointed people, and Carly very generously offered to take Cassie's place on the warrant subcommittee when that committee needs to be meeting in person. Thank you, Carly. We'll accept that offer. The next item under business is equity among schools. Anything new anyone wants to offer on that, or?
I just have a question, and it's related to the funding source for the facilitation that was provided by CES last year for the Equity Committee, and wondering if there's Is there anything in the operating budget? I know I could have asked this question of Joanne, but I didn't think about it until we were sitting here. But
It's okay.
is there, Joanne, do we have anything in the operating budget, or is that something that you'd need to check tomorrow when we get in together?
I will have to check.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone have anything about equity at the moment? We'll just keep it, we had said we'd keep it on the agenda, so as things come up, it'll be there. Jennifer?
I just want to be sure that if we're offering things like outdoor learning and tents and things like that, that they're being offered at all the schools. As we are doing the planning, that we're keeping all of our offerings very equal among the schools. I know they have more space and they've got nice trails, but you know, the kids at the other schools have to also be able to get outside. So that's just my 2 cents on following through the process and making sure that we're keeping it consistent.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, summer school. We have a short update, I think, Brian. We just got a new grant funded summer program.
You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, it was my second day here. I stumbled on, finally gotten into my email. Tina helped me to get set up, and right at the top of the email was something reminding us about a grant that was due basically that day. And so I didn't check the due date. I just saw the grant and that it was available. And so I forwarded it to Joanne. Joanne got together while I was getting my office set up, and she and Christine Limoges and Diane Ellis worked feverishly that day to write a grant. I think Diane was probably here until 9 o'clock at night. They were probably all here until about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And then a couple weeks, they submitted it on time. They got the grant. And now we are very fortunate to provide an in-person summer literacy, math, and arts and crafts summer school program for 16 students in grades 1 to 4. The program is running 7/29, so July 29th, starting tomorrow, until the 13th of August, and will be run on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 8:30 a.m. to noon. Breakfast and lunch will be served to each of those students free of charge. There are 2 teachers, 2 paraprofessionals, and a nurse to support this program with no cost to the district. So again, I wanted to especially thank Joanne, Christine Limoges, and Diane Ellis. They did phenomenal work in very short order to put something together that looks like it's really going to be fun, in addition to the fact that it's going to give us an opportunity to begin the process of interacting with some kids, which gives us some information about, you know, how, or gives us more questions about things that we have to do during the reopening.
Thank you. Cassie?
I think that sounds wonderful. I'm very excited about it. My question was, you mentioned 16 students. Was there a certain criteria for which students were selected? Was it sort of like a random, random choosing of students? I was just curious about that.
No, Christine had a group of students that were identified, and I don't know specifically off the top of my head what that criteria was, but they began to think about it as they were writing the grant. So I do know that in working together with Diane, they were able to give some consideration specifically to the types of students who would be invited to attend.
Great.
And I apologize for not knowing what the criteria is off the top of my head.
Jennifer?
I can say that I know that the criteria was definitely based on being identified as needing support prior to the shutdown. Those kids that they're worried about prior to that they already had kind of identified. So
yeah, related to the highest risk of regression, I think is what part of
yeah.
the criteria was. Yep.
Yeah. And I have a student that's going, so I would definitely provide feedback as to what it's like in real life. I had to, you know, tell one kid you can go and the other kid they couldn't. So I understand where parents are wondering, you know, how come my kid can go and another kid can't? But it's definitely need-based. It's just the next round of students that we can help because the kids that have the English learners and IEPs they're already in a different program. So it's just the next level of support that we are able to provide for the kids that were identified prior to the shutdown.
Thank you for that information. Haley?
Yeah, I want to make a strong request that we, watch this model, and if we end up remote at all, I'd like to see this happening in more small pods, so that we're providing in-person engagement for the students most at need. I really want us to think out of the box to make that happen because it's just so critical.
Thank you. Mike, did I see your hand?
Cassie covered it. Thank you, Cassie.
Oh,
And thank you, Brian.
thank you. And thanks again from all of us to Joanne and Christine and Diane for doing that in rapid time and being very successful at it. Thank you all. Okay.
We do that for all grants from now on.
Yeah, just what's a day, right? Seriously. Okay, graduation update. We just wanted to, I guess that is me. It was amazing. The high school graduation was as close as we could come to a really traditional graduation as absolutely possible with the limitations. Everything was done amazingly well. Everybody was at least 6 feet apart everywhere. You had to come in through a gate that had hand sanitizer and masks available if you didn't have one. The students got to take their pictures under the trellis as they always did, thanks to Jen Luciano, who took the pictures, but it was way back from everybody else so they could take their masks off. The only other time people took masks off is when they were speaking in the microphone, which was ably disinfected quite well by Joni Menard in between each of us approaching it. The students really did an amazing job and seemed to really appreciate everything that went into it. And it was just so wonderful to see it. I'll try to make a partial list of thanks. I hope I don't miss anyone. At the high school, Sandy Bailey did a lot of the work. Joni Menard, of course. Adam Graves was very helpful in many ways. Beth Fortin from the guidance department. Of course, the custodial and maintenance people had a lot of work to do for this, positioning all the chairs and things. And many of the staff members were there, helping at the gates and in any way that they could. I think it was just such a group effort. I'd really like to send them a lot of thanks from all of us.
Jane, if I could add a couple things in, because Joni did share a couple of thank yous with me and you've already highlighted them, but she did want to thank the team at the high school for working so well, so collaboratively together to pull this off. So adding in as people who also needed to be thanked were John Grace, Lisa Kuczynski, you mentioned Jen Luciano already, and Julie Wanzi. But Joni also wanted to add a warm thank you to Dr. Michael Sullivan, my predecessor, for coming out of retirement and offering some words of wisdom to the graduates. And she also wanted to show her appreciation to you as the chair for speaking to the seniors. So thank you.
It's always a pleasure to go to those events. And thank you for filling it in. Okay, next item, change to the 2020-2021 school year district calendar. I think we've heard a bit about it. Anything else on that front, Brian?
Well, I went through today, as I mentioned, Carl was sitting in our administrative meeting and I had just haphazardly counted the days. I can't tell you how many times I've counted calendar days before trying to figure out when something could happen. So I did it quickly and I went into the meeting thinking, oh, well, if we did all 10 days, that school would be starting on September 14th, but that's not correct. School would, if we were to do all 10 days, which the administrative team and the Teachers Association leadership are in favor of, that we don't have to make any other changes. We would just, the committee would just vote to push back the start of school for students to September 10th. And then we would work with the Teachers Association to bargain on how those days would be used.
and then we would be starting on what date exactly?
The students would return on September 10th.
Okay, for students. Thank you. Jennifer?
I just had a question about preschool and kindergarten typically start earlier than the other grades. Would you just have everyone start the same day, or how would you figure that out? Or
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that as an administrative team. We did not discuss that today. We just wanted to take the initial step, making sure that the calendar was changed, because our biggest thing was wanting to get that information out to families now so that they can plan. But it also gives us the opportunity to engage in the planning around what we're going to use that time for.
yeah, and I think families really appreciate getting as much heads up as possible.
So
Also, they're usually typically half days when the school starts, so just something else to keep in mind for the younger kids that are adjusting, especially since they've been out of school for so long.
So my understanding is that has the administrative team typically brought those to school committee for approval, or have you simply done the start of school and they followed a protocol from year to year that's been similar in starting? So,
They followed a protocol in my experience.
okay, so we have a principals meeting on Monday morning, and so between our Thursday meeting and Monday morning meeting, we should be able to get information together at least about that. And if there's anything that deviates from the idea of everybody starting on the 10th, then we'll engage Carl and Kelly in the conversation just to make sure that, we're not creating a difficult set of circumstances for anybody on the staff to do something slightly different.
Okay, Carl?
I first have to admit that I am calendarically challenged. I always have trouble counting days, but I just counted it 3 more times and I'm still getting the 14th. So maybe I'm missing something that includes taking a day out for Labor Day.
Let's see.
So they have a copy of the calendar. So the good thing is we should all be able to get consensus on this then.
Excellent. I'll try to find my copy.
No, so that's one of the things that I didn't do, was to take out for Labor Day.
Using our calendar, it looks like the 11th if we take a day out for Labor Day.
But the 11th is a Saturday, isn't it?
No, the 11th is a Friday.
Oh,
The
okay.
calendar that we have in the packet has no weekend days on it,
Right.
which is why it had me confused for a minute.
I count out to the 11th also.
So we were both wrong, Carl.
I want to see what my error is. I haven't found the calendar yet.
I just pulled it up on my phone. That seemed quicker.
So
How many days are you doing for service, for
we
training?
will update the calendar. We can bring it back to the next meeting. It'll be easier to look at if it's been updated.
Okay. But Bill, did you have a question?
Are we starting on the 24th of August?
For staff, yeah, that's currently the plan.
And you're looking for 10 days, or how many days?
Yes,
Before
10 additional days. We have 3 days built in. And one of the things that the committee may want to discuss now is if we're looking at having students start on the 11th, the way to get everybody potentially on board is to consider pushing back the start for staff from the 24th to the 25th. That way, the students do start on Monday, the 14th.
Because I'm just looking at, if you start the 24th, that's a full week. And then you have the first full week of September. That's 10 days right there. And then the
No,
8th.
it's the students. I'm sorry, Bill. The students wouldn't. Those first 3 days are contractual days for staff where we have to do all sorts of various training. There's a preparation and classroom preparation day that's built in there. And also building-based meetings and the opportunity to recognize years of service and other achievements of the staff in those 3 opening days. So those remain. Students were slated to start on the 27th initially.
I understand now. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So at our next meeting, we'll have an official calendar with that to vote on.
Well, we could vote on it you guys you could vote on it now.
Just say 10 days without naming a date.
And if we, Carl, what do you think about the idea of having staff instead start on the 25th? We could do our new teacher orientation on the 24th, which is not one of the days that counts, but if we started staff on the 25th, then students would be back where we thought we were, which gets us to the 14th.
But what happens to that day on the 24th? I guess I'm confused. I'm not following.
So rather than starting staff on the 24th as is planned in the calendar now, we would start them on the 25th. Just
Or you
to
mean
get
just moving everything up a day?
Yes, exactly.
I don't see any problem with that.
And the advantage is for new teachers that new teachers wouldn't have to come in on the 21st, that previous Friday. We could then move our new teacher orientation to August 24th.
So the whole calendar would extend a day in June.
No, it wouldn't have to, because this only involves the staff days. The student days go down to 170, so there's no reason for us to add anything on at the other end.
Are we sure? Because I think if we're adding a day to make them start Monday versus Friday, it wouldn't be 170 days. It'd be 169 days. Is what is my thinking. I know I'm confused.
Yeah. If we take the very first day off, we need to add one at the end to make up for that. So the teacher day.
Oh, and the total 185?
To make it 185,
teachers.
right.
Yep. Okay. No, I was looking just at the student days. You're right.
Without this change, I'm still getting the 14th. I wish I could get this calendar stable so I could demonstrate it.
I was just going to point out that the reason for the day delayed start for kindergarten and preschool is that they're not covered by the 180-day statute. So they're allowed to start a little later. And Kelly could correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, actually kindergarten isn't mandatory. So they could show up to first grade. We, from what I was told before, we actually have half the time on learning as well because some districts are still doing half days. So what we usually do the first 2 days is bring all the families in separately so they can do visits in the classroom. Then we do a slow start with the kids for the next 3 to 4 days, having half days.
Thank you.
That is on, that is something I brought up to Sarah Burstein today during our meeting. So I know, as Brian said, that's on their agenda.
Good.
I figured out my error, so I agree.
So with this calendar and not moving the end of the year, that would have us students starting on Friday the 11th, which I think is fine. We were sitting in our meeting, Carl and I and the admin team were just excited at our bad math and saying, because we felt like it would be great for the kids to start on a Monday, but we were originally going to have them on a Thursday or Friday. So I think it's fine.
It's not even math, it's arithmetic.
Whatever it wasn't the best.
Yes.
But if we do move the teacher's first, move the student's first day to the 14th, and it would just add 1 day at the end of June.
Would it be acceptable to the teachers to add 1 day on the end of June?
The only hesitation I have is if someone has already made plans, which is conceivable.
Yeah.
And we could accommodate that if it was a small number of people.
Well, but Carl, we also have snow days that might happen. So if they're planning something.
That's true, you're right. Nobody should be counting it that close. Good point.
Right.
And the other thing I would add too is that it pushes the end of the school year to June 11th if we do that, and which is a Friday. But it's very likely that at least for this year, when we have snow days, we're going to be able to. Those days are going to count as remote learning days. So it's unlikely that we're going to need to make up snow days.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So I feel good about starting on the 14th. If we can move the opening day for staff to the 25th, have the last day of school be Friday, June 11th. You know, I think it's unlikely that we're going to have snow days this year. Well, not that we're not going to have snow. I'm not a meteorologist, but.
I'd like to make a motion to accept what Brian just stated.
Second.
Okay, Haley made the motion. Mike, I believe, seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That looks pretty unanimous. So Brian, you can just state it the way you'd like Sabrina to put it in the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item is public participation in person meetings, two different pieces, but we gave the public participation a bit of a try. Technology is going to make it challenging, but we gave it a shot. I think we'll probably add, if it's okay with the group, to add the idea that people can mail in something that they would like read if they choose not to necessarily Zoom in. Cassie?
No, I wanted to comment and thank Jen Lively first for taking the time. I know it took her all day. But this was kind of, I sort of felt like this was a little bit unorganized in the sense I expected this part of the meeting to be where we sort of set the guidelines for what that was going to look like. So I was sort of surprised we had it today. But that being said, I think that, you know, everyone that participated today was talking about the reopening plan. And so I want to suggest, and maybe this is for the next item on the agenda, that at some point we do have that sort of virtual meeting that is dedicated just to that. Obviously, we don't have much information now, but to field more questions. Because I think some people were also a little confused. This was like a full business school committee meeting, and it wasn't just for that reason. So they may have rushed, or like they weren't able to provide as much as they were planning on doing. That's all.
Okay, thanks. Yes, everything's still pretty new. And again, thanks, Jennifer. Yes, Jennifer?
Yeah, I did spend a lot of the day just fielding questions about how to find our agenda, how to know what we're talking about. And I think a lot of people just wanted the link because they thought that might be a good way to hear what's going on. So I think we just need to refine the process. I don't mind getting the emails to be requested in, but just so they know that that's for them to give us comments. And we got an overwhelming response, which is really great to see that people want to speak to us. It's really important. And I think as we move forward with the plans and after it's announced, if we could do something informational with a Q&A after, I would definitely think that would be a good idea. I think people certainly want to give feedback, but the process, responding to the email, they were prompted by that, which was great to be engaged, but I think it was a little confusing. And then the technology is hard if it's your first time too.
Cassie?
I just want to add to, it's been so long since we've had an in-person meeting, but in the in-person meetings, there's no back and forth. And I think that, the people that were participating tonight, I hope they recognize that's why there wasn't the dialogue back and forth, because I think that if it's somebody's first time jumping onto a meeting and they're doing public participation, I mean, we were all kind of quiet and didn't respond, but also just letting them know that, kind of reminding them that's how it looks.
Right. I think that's a good suggestion as well, that, we did frame it when the invitation that it was public participation, but I think it never hurts to remind people how things work in general. And I think with that in mind, also reminding people that they can always access information about meetings on the website that's available, and as well as the notices that go out and the emails from the superintendent. Anything else on that? But thank you. I think people should be thinking about that if if they think the next meeting or so we should talk about once a plan is announced, about the idea that we might want to have an informational session where people could ask questions and generally have a discussion about that. I think I was pretty impressed with how well it went tonight, technology being what it was. And I think it was pretty impressive. Thanks to Jennifer. She got us all organized, and thanks to Tina with the technology piece.
Yeah, all I did was send the link, so can't take credit. Tina's the one that did the stuff.
And you did answer questions on Facebook. I did see that. It always helps. It does.
Trying to just clarify. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's think about the in-person meeting. I think we need to keep thinking about that. I think it's something that's been suggested. It's something that can be tricky. But I think if we get to the point where we want to give it a try, I think we could use a really big space so that we would have more than enough space between us. One of the issues would be we'd each have to have our own microphone, which isn't typical. Haley?
Yeah, I just wanted to advocate that when we do start meeting in person, we don't do it in the school building. I think it's a really misguided form of support that we would be traipsing extra bodies through the school building. I would like to see us, maybe we use the senior center because the seniors aren't using the senior center right now, or a tent or something like that. But I want to keep extra bodies out of the school building.
Good point. Carl?
You have a nice meeting room in the safety center just up the street if you're looking for a venue.
Is it big enough? I was remembering it as being kind of small.
I have to take a look again, but I thought it was big enough.
I've been there. It's pretty large. It's rectangular, but there's room for 6 or 7 rows of tables, from what I remember.
Okay. So we'd have to do things like measuring the distance, positioning us far enough apart, requiring masks.
And also checking if we're allowed in there, what their protocols are.
Right.
A lot of places are not letting outside groups come in, but.
Right, either of those places, you're right. And an outside tent might work if we, were quick enough and met early enough and talked fast. Carly?
Where they did the voting, right, Jen? Is that the room you're talking about? For one of the precincts, they just did the voting in that room. So, if they're going to let the public in for that, I wouldn't see why we can't use it for us. And that worked out great. They functioned really well with a large amount of people going in and out of that room. So I think that room would actually be really good.
I also think we should confer with Tina about all the tech stuff.
Right, especially if we're not in a school, then it would mean how can she handle it remotely and to make sure that Dean could broadcast it, or if not, that we could tape it. That was the main reason I thought about using an area of the school like the theater or something. Good point. Okay, I'm making notes on all this. Any other ideas about that? Mike?
Well, not so much an idea, but just to let you know that MCTV can go wherever there's a phone signal.
Okay.
And do a live shoot, but that's going to mean more people if they're going to be there with cameras. I'm just adding that to the list of
okay. Yeah. We'll have to count people carefully, and I think the new regulation is under 25 currently, but it also depends on space in the facility, whether 25 are allowed or not. There's an area. So, okay, I will check in. Haley?
Yeah, just a technical question. Is there any provision for some people to be able to Zoom into an in-person meeting? If they're not feeling comfortable with going, or I know I'm going to run into childcare problems this fall.
Right. And I was going to say, you know, I just with anyone else involved with anything that's going on, that if someone feels that it's not reasonable for them to do that, they're certainly, you know, that's their right, and they should exercise that right. But I'll ask that of Tina as well. Okay, so we will check into that so we can think about it before too long, hopefully. And I will, if you think of any other questions to go along with that or ideas, please, you know, just send them to me, email, that's fine. Bill?
If you had in-person meetings, then you'd have to go by, I believe, the protocols for a remote participant, which would be simply for the committee to vote to allow.
Yes, thank you, yes.
And you need a quorum present at the actual meeting.
Right.
Yes, you do as a rule. I believe the governor's exception made that not required anymore, which is why we're able to do this. But I would have to check that. That's a good point, Mike. It might still be required if most of us were there. I don't know. Good point. Oh, so many questions. Okay, but good. Anything else? All right, we'll check into that. In the meantime, the next one at least we'll say will be virtual because I don't see us solving all this immediately. Fiscal year update, I think we've covered that. Is there anything else, Brian or Joanne?
No, I mean, I would anticipate that if there's a superintendent out there who mentioned something about the legislature having addressed the first 3 months of the school year, or the first 3 months of the fiscal year, I would anticipate that we would be hearing something soon. But no new news yet.
Okay. Anything else, Joanne, you could think of we missed?
No, we're still waiting on Gill's town meeting day. I heard that it's possible it could be September 5th, but that wasn't a set date just yet. So if anybody has.
Right. No, last time I looked on the website, there was no date because I have checked, but I haven't checked in the last few days. Okay. Last on the business is MASC conferences and workshops. I do have some information, but I wanted to make sure, as far as I know, all of the school committee members should be getting emails as well as regular mail information from the Mass Association of School Committees, of which we're a member. Am I freezing? Oh, wait.
Your picture's frozen, but I can still see you.
Oh, but am I talking or?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, when you all freeze, I think that's a bad sign because you're not that quiet. So if you are not already on the list, the website is simply www.masc.org, but you should be, and you can just ask them to put you on the list since you're a school committee member. The two items of particular interest is all new members are encouraged to take a charting the course class. And in fact, I've done it a couple of times because I always find something interesting. They are offering it. They started this week. They're offering it on virtually and at no cost. And the second session of that will be Monday, August the 3rd, Tuesday, August the 4th, and Thursday, August the 6th from 5:30 to 9 in the evening. And those will be available remotely. If you're interested, the specific information on what the workshops are on could be found on their website. You wouldn't have to go to all of them if you don't choose it. You could just go to the ones you're interested in. But it is really helpful for a new member. Those kinds of things help a lot to get oriented. And on a note from them as well, the November annual MASC-MASS Joint Conference in Hyannis, November 4th through 7th, is going to be not held in person this year. I believe the venue, for one thing, is not hosting it, and it's just too tricky at this point. But we should be receiving information about workshops and forums that might have been held there that they'll do online. And I believe they had said if they do it online, there will not be a cost. There was a fairly high cost to go to Hyannis. So we'll be looking forward to that as well. Those workshops were quite interesting and helpful. And along with that, I think they'll be holding the delegate assembly virtually as well, but we don't have to think about choosing a delegate till October to name our own delegate. Any questions about that? Okay. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. If it's acceptable to the committee, we could approve them together. If people would rather separate them out, that's fine.
Move we accept the 2 submitted sets of minutes.
Okay, the first is March 24th, 2020. The second is April 9th, 2020. We have a motion by Mike to approve them together. Do we have a second?
Second.
And Bill seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Timmy, aye.
Okay, that looks unanimous again. Thank you. If you have any agenda requests, Mike?
I do have one. And sorry for popping it up out of nowhere earlier on. But I'd like to put on the next agenda to see whether there's any interest in talking about adding a potential year to the high school so that there's a buffer zone where kids can make up what will certainly be, or the potential for gaps in their education, especially if things go further south and we aren't able to open up and do regular classrooms. There's a gap from last year. Well, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about it now. That's not time to talk about it, but that's the idea. And without starting the conversation necessarily, just to see whether there's the interest in thinking about it. If not, then we'll move on.
Okay, I wrote it on the list. Thank you.
Thank you.
Haley?
Yeah, I have a question in my mind. It may just be too radical and left field, but I'd like to know, what are the consequences if we as a district decided to flout DESE's rules for grading and assessment this year, and also MCAS?
So moved. Sorry.
Yeah, I will definitely put that down because I was reading those with some consternation. Yes. Thank you. We'll put that on the list. Anything else? And certainly let me or Brian or Cassie know at any point. We usually meet the Monday of the week before the meeting to do our agenda planning. That's kind of typical. So if you think of anything else, please let us know. Right now we have the next scheduled meeting is on the 11th. And it will be virtual at this point because I don't think we'll be able to set up the in-person even if it's feasible by then. We're not positive. The regular meeting on the 25th is a regular meeting and it may be virtual or not. And after that, September 8th. I did send out an email to everyone maybe a week or so ago that depending on how decisions are being made in August, we might need to have an extra meeting in the week of August 18th, either Tuesday.
We lost you, Jane. We can't hear you. Can you try again, Jane?
Yes, I thought I was frozen. I would anticipate it would just be a one-item agenda to discuss and vote on the plan for the beginning of school. If we're able to do it at the other meeting, one or both of the other meetings, that's fine. But if we need,
What she's saying is holding an extra meeting. I think the Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So that would be the 18th, 19th, or 20th with one agenda item to discuss this.
okay,
Yeah, I'm happy to meet whenever we need to get this happening.
okay. Yes, nobody indicated from the email that it, you know, they would be away or anything, which is, it's helpful if I can let people know as soon as we know, even if there's a chance. And if we don't, okay, you have a free evening. Harley?
So I will, because I did not get that email, I will be away the 16th to the 20th.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Jennifer?
I'm just going to go ahead and suggest we pick the 18th so that it's sooner than later and we can get information out. And if we need to have something informational after, you know, we just have more time. More time is better to, I vote for the 18th.
Are you thinking, Brian, that that would give us enough time to get the input that we were planning by then?
Well, the only concern, and I'm not in disagreement because obviously, you know, people will have opportunity to review the plan. And as I mentioned, the communications committee will consult with you beforehand to find out what you want to know once they've read the plan. And it's really only going to be a couple of questions. You know, will you be transporting your student, or are you going to be taking the bus? Will your kid come back? So things like that. You know, are you going to remain one of the fully remote families? And so making sure that after the 11th, that there's enough time for what they need to, and also respond to this. The survey response itself will be quick. The biggest need for time will be to give them the opportunity to flip through. So I'm not opposed to it. It's just it'll shorten stuff up for families. So if we meet on the 11th and they're getting it on the 12th, it gives them a little bit less than a week to review it and respond to whatever we send out. When we send out when I share the documents or post them on the website, then we should make sure that we're also sending out the survey right away and posting the survey on the website.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Do parents think they need more time to read it and go over it, or they want to know what's going on sooner than later and have it finalized? I don't know.
Yep.
Sure.
No, I agree with him. I agree. I think because people want to know as quickly as possible, I think they'll take the time, and we'll encourage them to read them aggressively, knowing that we're going to be making a decision on the 18th then. I mean, I can do that with a voice call too.
Okay, anything else?